Welcome to
every,
the FM
yeah, welcome.
Training.tv live stream. What? I just added you. I'm doing
It's awesome. I'm glad everyone's going here. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
We're here to talk about the amazing, fantastic FileMaker platform, both in no code up to pro code. We cover a variety of subjects on a variety of different training levels. Today we are discussing some very basic security stuff, but you always learn new stuff when recapping the basics, so feel free to stick around even if you think you know everything. We've got today Jacob and J-Ray and Richard as well in the background discussing a variety of stuff. Real quick, we have the future live stream training schedule. So today is on extended privileges. Tomorrow is going to be options for external script activation, which is new with FileMaker 19. Thursday will be reliable PDF preview and FileMaker for Windows, which should be fun for all of you Windows folks out there. Friday, we got a Dropbox sample file. If you want to add Dropbox to your FileMaker file, this will be the live stream for you. And then Monday and Tuesday, it's the return of Nick, but with two different discussions. Remote deletion in FileMaker, how to delete records fast and furious, and Nick's FileMaker tips and tricks, which is basically kind of a collection of Nick does a lot of little random stuff. Generally, one of those things won't make an hour of content, but a collection of it will. If these subjects don't interest you, or if you don't like our back and forth format where we talk and discuss and chat about things with you and you ask questions, we do have the amazing bundle training, which is now 100 plus hours of video content. It keeps growing bigger every time I talk about it. The complete Learning FileMaker subscription and the Learning FileMaker video only training bundle, one comes with FileMaker, one doesn't, helps us keep the lights on. It's 10 to 20-minute segments on really interesting content in small bite-sized chunks, discussed by Richard, who is perhaps one of the most entertaining presenters that I know. So if you are like, well, I'm going to get bored, I promise you won't. There are explosions that are in the files that I'm pretty sure more Star Trek references than we can shake a stick at. Please feel free to support us through doing that. You'll learn a lot, I promise. We greatly appreciate it. It allows us to keep these live streams going.
So are we ready to introduce the topic today, Margaret, almost? Are we there?
We are good. We are done with the spiel, the wonderful spiel.
Okay, cool. Well, today's broadcast is largely going to be about continuation of the security conversation. We started things off yesterday discussing accounts, privileges, which are kind of a core of it, and then extended privileges, which basically the material that we're talking about is very testable in the certification test. So I don't know if Larry made it today or not. Larry, if he's there, I can't really see. Margaret, is Larry here? Mark, any of our moderators, our Marine moderators,
Larry
are they around?
is indeed here, yes.
Oh, good. Well, Larry, you're going to want to listen to the recording yesterday. If you're interested in content in terms of certification test, there is a lot of the stuff we're talking about is testable. And so today's conversation, I'm going to have Jonathan kind of show his screen and jump on. Jonathan, are you there?
I am here. Let's go ahead and start sharing the screen. And
yep.
Margaret, just let me know when that's coming through, okay?
Yep,
yeah,
I can see it.
It looks good. Yeah, it looks great. Yeah, so the idea is, yep, the idea is I'm just going to kind of kick it off, Jay. So real quick, so the idea is to continue the conversation today, talk about extended privileges, talk about scripts interaction, things like that. Some of you actually have questions about this. Some of you, like Kyle Williams, some of you are already experts. There's no question you're experts about this, so this is very boring for you. I do apologize for that, but sometimes we do basic content. Now, so you know, I know we have Nick coming back. Nick has been on kind of this very long vacation. He's been doing some customer work, but he's also got a lot of content coming, including a new starting point. And so there's going to be a lot of Nick coming up. So for those of you who only love Nick and that's the only person you really want to hear from, you'll have more Nick opportunities coming up in the future. We have quite a bit of Nick, so much Nick you might vomit and throw up. So we have to watch out for that. You might get sick. So today we're continuing the conversation about, frankly, the security, right? So Jay created a little file here. Why don't you walk us through this, Jay? What are we doing?
Sure, yeah. Yesterday we started with a uber basic file that we created on the spot to demo some security features. We've put a couple more things together, and I'd like to continue that conversation. And after my little demo here, I'm going to have Jacob jump in and we'll talk about extended privileges. But we're continuing the conversation from the basic built-in privileges here. So let me give you a scenario. Right now, I'm logged in as an admin. My account name is admin. My permission is full access. And in layout mode, if I go to edit layout, this is just a really quick tip. You can always put a calculation on the layout itself by coming up here and going to Insert and then Other Symbol. And it allows you to put in all of the get functions, any one you want. So you could put in, say, the current date, and it's there. And if you go back to browse mode, then your date is appearing. So that's how I'm displaying my current account name that I'm logged in as and the full access. So yesterday we showed how to create different privilege sets. And just as a recap, why would you want different privilege sets? Well, if you don't want everyone to have admin access or some other privilege set that's just built in, like the read-only access or the data entry access, those are the three default. If you want something more specific, like the one we created yesterday for maybe a finance user, you want to give a person in the finance department only access to invoices, but not contacts or anything else, then this type of security privilege set creation is for you, and this is a good conversation to listen to. So right now, if we gave everyone admin access, they would have the ability to create and delete records. They have the ability to come up here to file and export records, and they can do the very dangerous thing of coming up here to records and clicking delete all records. Okay, I just had a customer today accidentally push that button on a vital table in their database, and I'm in the process of restoring from a backup, but it's because certain people were given permissions and not locked down. That's kind of the Murphy's Law. If someone's able to do something, eventually they're going to do it. So what we did here in File, Manage Security, we came over here to Advanced Settings, and here are our privilege sets. These are the three that are baked into every FileMaker file that you create: full access, data entry only, and read-only access. We created this new one, okay? And you can see here we're not allowing exporting. And then in records, let's come here. In invoices, it says field access is limited. And just as a quick test, I put everything's modifiable except this little field here called flag save to Excel. So this is a good test for us. Everything else we can modify except that one field. All right. So now I'm going to re-log in as this finance user. Come here. It's going to allow me to re-log in. Okay. And we know I'm logged in as this person now because my my display fields up here changed. I'm now logged in as Jonathan Ray. That's the account name. And the permission is finance user. Now, I want to specify this real quick, that there are two permission functions. We'll get into that in a second. Okay, so you notice here now that I'm logged in as finance user. I can create, but I can't delete this record, right? I can't come up here to records and click delete or delete all records. That's a good thing. Nor can I come up here to file and export records. It's grayed out, right? So it's locked down. It's doing what we want it to do. But I can put in things like the date, a couple things like this, okay? But remember, this checkbox field is the one that I'm not allowed to modify. So if I try to, it'll say, can't do it. This is the default message that you get from FileMaker when your permissions don't allow you to do a particular thing like that, okay? Nor can I get into the contacts list view, which is something that was turned off. So this is working pretty well, all right? I'm going to re-log in and show you what these three buttons do, and this will be helpful. Okay, admin. Okay, I'm going to go into scripts, which is File, Manage, Scripts, Command-Shift-S, and I have three different scripts available. One, let's start with this one. It says Save Invoice as Excel, non-full access. Let's start with this. You see these little people icons here? The first two have them. This one does not. What this icon indicates is that if I right-click this field, I can come over here and click Grant Full Access Permissions. Right now, it doesn't have that. So if I turn it on, the little guy appears. If I do it again and I revoke full access privileges, and the guy goes away. Well, here's what a difference it makes. If I don't have full access turned on this script, then the default FileMaker permissions are in effect. All right, so if I'm logged in, not as admin, but the finance user, and I try to run this script, okay, right now it's checking to see if it's full access, and we'll go through that in a second. But say it tried to save the records as Excel. It would give me an error, a generic error saying it cannot save it. And then down here, it would say, hey, we can't save this Excel file. Here's the error. It would be, in this case, error 3, which is can't save the file, very generic. So instead of giving a generic error, what I've done here in the error trapping is if the current privilege set name is not full access, if it's not, then show this dialog and says, hey, you can't do this. Your privileges won't allow it, and then halt.
Let me interrupt real quick, Jonathan, because a lot of this came from a question from Nathan. So this is why the live streams are so great, because it allows us to answer questions that you folks are asking. You please ask your questions. Otherwise, why be here? Just might as well watch the recorded video on security. Because we're live, we can answer questions. Nathan asked about this yesterday, about if you gave this kind of this ability here, what is the script going to do? And we're going to cover that in great detail right now, which is great. But I just want to let you know that we are answering questions. Margaret, are you there? Is Nathan actually in Twitch?
Yes, he is. I just asked him, and he said that this is answering his question. So
perfect. All right. Well, we'll let Jay keep going. It's great, Jay. Perfect.
All right, great. So this one does not have full access turned on, and so you're going to get the default FileMaker messages. Now, pay very close attention to this thing up here. It says get current privilege set name. Okay. There's another one that's not current privilege set name, and these two options here. So this script is tied to this button. All right. These other two scripts, they have the admin access turned on. So it's going to run as if it is the admin, as if it is a person with full access. Okay. This script here has this function, current privilege set name, while this script has get account privilege set name. All right. The difference is that if I run this script as the finance user, okay, as Jonathan Ray, finance user, and I run this script, the current privilege set name will reflect the access I have on this script, meaning that if I run it, it's gonna pass this check. It's gonna say, well, yeah, your current privilege set is full access, because it changes the current privilege set name to full access if I turn if this guy is appearing, if I run the script with full access. However, in this script, if it runs, it's not going to be full access. It's looking at the actual account's privilege set name, not the current privilege set name at the time of running this script. So let me stop there and make sure that makes sense. And with me so far?
That's a good question. Is there questions along the way? Are they questions?
We just got one. Okay.
Okay.
So one from Ruben. Run script with extra privileges. How does that work with PSOS? Do you only have enabled the main script with the admin privileges, or both?
So with perform script on server, if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me, Jacob, but it runs as if you're the admin. Is that right? Well, or does it inherit the...
No, it inherits. It
privilege set.
inherits. It
Okay.
inherits. It will inherit the default. And then, so the behavior is the same. Remember, PSOS is FileMaker, like a hidden version of FileMaker Pro that runs on the server. And so when you fire it up and run it, it's gonna run the open script, the first open script, runs the close script. It gets your credentials, right? It basically is you. Of course, if you tell it to run a script with this turned on, then it bypasses that and it runs as admin, right? So, yeah.
It's basically the same. Yeah.
All right. So in these two scripts, we're going to log in as the finance user in a second. Just one thing left to show you. So we're going to set a field that displays on the screen, and it's going to say save to Excel at such and such time, such and such person, and current privilege set, versus this one here that has account privilege set. So this will make sense in a second. I'm going to re-log in as our finance user. Okay, I'm this finance user now. Now remember, this button here is tied to a script that does not have run as full access turned on. So I'm going to try to run it, and I get my alert, hey, you can't do it. Your privileges do not allow you to perform this function. Okay? But if I override that setting, say this one right here, this one is using get current privilege set name. And if I click it, it lets me try to save the file, whereas before it would not allow a finance user to do that. We hit override on it and say I save this as test. Now look what it did. It set this field and hit this field here, save to Excel on such and such date, such and such time. A user with full access privileges did this. Look up here. My privileges as for the account is finance user, but the get current privilege set name is full access. You see that?
Yeah, this is a good one. I don't know that this is on the test, but this kind of stuff is very testable because it shows that you actually are using the technology, right? So this is very important. I beat my head against the wall one time. It took me about 2 hours to figure out why this was the way it was, probably 10 or 12 years, 15 years ago. And when PSOS came out, because when PSOS came out, I was one of the first people that presented on it at DevCon way back. So I got to experiment and experience all the craziness that went on, right? And so, yeah, full access. And you're like, I'm not full access. That's bullshit, right?
Right. And what happened here is they originally only had one get function, and it was get privilege set name, I'm pretty sure. When FileMaker 11 came out, they split that into two. So now we have get current privilege set name, which is what we just ran here, and get a account privilege set name, which is this one there. Okay, and that's the big difference, and so that's what you're seeing. So that's kind of my demo that shows you the ability of the override feature on the scripts, allowing you to run a script as admin versus the regular privilege set that you are. That's kind of the dog and pony show there.
Margaret, when he was explaining that last little bit there, he kind of cut out on my audio. Did you guys all hear that very cleanly on your end? Or was that on my end?
Briefly cut out on mine. So you want to restate
Okay, so why don't you repeat the two different get functions, cover that one more time, the two different ones, Jay.
Sure. So when FileMaker 11 came out, or before that, they only had one get function called get privilege set name. Okay? But when 11 came out, they split that into two. Now you have get current privilege set name and get account privilege set name. Get current privilege set name is tied to this button that gave us whatever privilege set is running the script. When you set it to admin privileges, it's going to put in full access. Okay? Whereas the account privilege, get account privilege set name is not what is current, but what is tied to the actual user. And so in here, right there, it'll put in finance user. And you can see here that I trapped for it. And we said, if this is not full access, then note that this user attempted to export this invoice to an Excel document, but failed in doing so. So it allows us to trap more correctly. If a finance user is not supposed to be able to export it, then it made a note of it. Okay, and I think with that, unless we have any other questions on this topic, we can transition into the extended privileges stuff.
We've got one more. Nathan has a follow-up question. So for the script option 2, hold on, I have to copy it because Twitch is being a pain. Twitch question. So for script option 2, you could have multiple get account privilege sets and maybe end with a get current privilege set as the final else.
I'm sure if you wanted to, yeah. But I mean, you can do all sorts of things with if and trapping. You can say, if get account privilege set is full access, do this. If it's finance user, do this other thing. If it's read only, do this other thing. So you can trap for multiple different privilege set names. You're not restricted to that.
I was going to say, make sure the sales guys aren't trying to export data they're not supposed to.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
The sales guys are always getting in trouble. Even our sales guy, right? So.
Yep.
Could the button just be hidden if the proper privileges weren't present?
Okay, now here's a good follow-up to what we were talking about a little bit yesterday, where one way of doing it is saying you just restrict access in the built-in security here, okay, where someone cannot run a certain script or cannot do a certain thing. But if I come here and say something like, if get account privilege set name equals finance user, okay, then it's going to hide it. All right. And then I log in as the finance user. And it's gone. And we think, oh, there we go. We've solved the security problem, right? But then I come up here to scripts, and I can still run the script. Okay, so unless you cover all of your bases everywhere, then just hiding something isn't always going to solve the security problem. There's a lot of ways to get around doing that. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm going to see. I assume that answered the question, Brotherman. Let me know if it didn't.
Yeah, Margaret, real quick. So on that topic, so we talked about this yesterday for those of you who missed yesterday. So we spent about a year ago on a live stream about file security access, bad guy security versus workflow security. So Jonathan is demonstrating workflow security here. The idea is that we're applying the security that's appropriate to the situation. So this can there's always someone in the room who's smarter than you are, who can figure out how to bypass when you've hidden something on screen or something like that, and you're trying to hide it through security through obscurity, or you're doing a hide function. That kind of security is what we call workflow security. It's basically it's basically to restrict access to people who aren't ginormous threats to your organization, and they don't have a giant financial incentive to screw you or the people who own the database over, right? And so if you own the database, we're talking about yourself, but if you have staff, I mean, that's the whole point of FileMaker, lots of users, collaborative users, not everyone owns the organization for whatever reason. And so if you have a level of security where there is a substantial risk because there is a gold bar, a gold nugget, 50,000 stack of $50,000, right? Whatever. Then you must use the security that's based up in here where you go file, manage security. You have to use that to protect because you cannot get around that security. This file manage security is basically hacker proof that I'm aware of, right? If implemented correctly, is hacker proof. This over here is not hacker proof. This is just makes things really inconvenient for some. Like say, for example, you had a button, it's hidden, and then you come up here and say, "Oh, I'm going to hide the script," and so then the script is hidden. Well, what if I could get to the script another way? Right? There's about 5 or 6 different ways to get the scripts. We're going to talk about some of that tomorrow and how to secure that. But the point is that if you're doing the hide issue, something like that, there's always going to, you need to assume this, there's always going to be someone smarter around your system, that's smarter than you are, that's around your system, period. You're not the smartest person in the room. I mean, maybe we have Jacob around, but even Jacob, I know there's people that know FileMaker and how to get into it worse than Jacob does, right? There are people that exist, and some of them may not like you, and they might want your money, right? And so as a result of that, you have to apply the appropriate level of security. Margaret's going to post that video. She hasn't done it in all 3 areas, and I highly recommend you watch it because we articulate and spend a lot of time talking about this. It's super, super important because you want to, I mean, you don't want to do like gnarly level security to keep someone from running an Excel spreadsheet because, it's just not the area they should be in, right? But if the Excel spreadsheet has the bank account numbers and the Swiss bank accounts for Kyle and Brutterman's secret offshore money where they have taken all their drug sales and they've saved the money there overseas, you want that really secured and encrypted, right? You don't want to just hide object, right? You want that really encrypted because Brutterman doesn't want to lose his drug money, right? It's very important, right? So,
yeah, and it gets into exactly where we want to segue into. One of the little hacker ways that people would get around the basic hide function is if you turn on certain extended privileges that just shouldn't be turned on, okay? If I turn on FM REST or FM URL script or FM EXT script access. For instance, if I turn this one on, I could potentially create a little Apple script on a Mac that runs this script anyways and bypasses the button that I hid, right? And so not turning on certain of these extended privileges allow you to thwart the efforts of people that are trying to be clever and running the scripts that you don't want them to run. All right, and now with that, do we want to turn it over to Jacob a little bit and talk about extended privileges?
Well, we can talk about a little bit. It's important to understand this is definitely, Larry, for those of you trying to pass the certification test, you better know all of these. Absolutely know them, and some of them are kind of a little slightly deprecated, but I mean, this one is on the test. Like, for example, so here's a test question. If this is turned on, what does that do if someone logs off on a computer and then they come back? And what if this is not checked? What is the behavior of the file, right? There is, it's written in the help, but what is the behavior of the file? Well, if this isn't checked, you still get FM reauthenticate, but you get FM reauthenticate 1, as in like 1 minute. That 10 is 10 minutes, right? And so what happens if you do 60? And what happens if you do 10? And what if you have several of them that are, that are being applied to a person that maybe it conflicts or something? I mean, you need to think about this, but the part where people don't check it, it doesn't mean there's no FM reauthenticate. So for example, if you want to absolutely ensure that someone must log in immediately, like it's a doctor's application, you want them to log in immediately. And I don't know if this is on the test, but if it's not, it should be. It probably is like, well, I'm going to turn this off and that will force them to re-log on immediately. No, if you don't turn it on, the default is 1 minute, right? So Claire's decided that they would do FM 1 minute. So if you sleep, as long as you come back within 1 minute, you're still back in. But for a doctor application, that may not be good enough. So what you would want to do is create your own FM reauthenticate and set it for 0, FM reauthenticate 0, right? So if you go over to extended privileges and create, I think we can create a new one. Yep. Yeah, can we do a new one? Let's just like at that. So it has to be, you do a 1 or 0. Like they do the doctor one, you put 0, right? Force it to immediately re-log in, right? And then you could turn it on for, whoever it applies to, right? Yeah. And so I don't know if that has to have the bracket on it or not. I don't think so. No, there it is. There's a 10 up there. There's a 0 up there. Yeah. So you could have a whole range of these things. So you can define your own extended privilege set, right? Pretty neat. In fact, there's some really advanced stuff in here you can do we've not even hardly ever covered. But yeah, pretty neat stuff. So now your new one's down there. There it is. So questions. That should generate questions from people, because I guarantee this is on the test. And unless Larry's played with this one, this is one that Larry missed, right? So
now me just typing that in, though, is not going to make it re-authenticate at 0.
Sure,
you still have to.
Sure, it will, because it's looking for that as a keyword. So if you go back to the keyword, that keyword has to match, right? So if you go back into extended privileges, right?
There we go. Yeah. If I hadn't typed that in exactly like I did,
correct, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you could do, you can always test it. You can sleep it or whatever, but then they disconnect. It's not you have to play with it with a phone. But basically, if you type it in incorrectly, then you start to have a problem. But yes.
If I just type in something crazy, right, and then I put in my description here, it's not going to know I want this to re-authenticate at 2 minutes.
No, but you can test for an extended privilege set. You can build extended privileges, Jay. You can build them, and it's something that you probably never done, because we normally solve the problem a different way. It's one of those where they build something, you could have allow this person to print all the financial reports. So maybe printing the financial reports is not a privilege set. It's not a role. You don't attach it to here. It's a privilege set. So you have print financial reports, hire a new person, do this, do that. And you could assign that to different privileges. Like, these are all the things, and you could assign them to different roles over here. Most time we solve it differently, but this is a valid thing you can do. And you can say, one of the get functions, you get extended privileges, and it gives you a value list of all the items that are checked off for your specific privilege set that you're logged in as, right? It's really one of those things that I've seen Clay Mackle present on it. He's like, I never understand why the developers don't use this, right? Well, because we're solving the problem another way, right? But if you had that attached and turned on, you could do a test and do a value list, and something crazy would be in that extended privilege value list, and that you could do, your script could do whatever you needed to do. Right? So,
gotcha.
Pretty neat stuff.
I think the example I have with that, which I guess we can't really demo it, so I don't know if it's super useful to talk about, but they were working on that encrypted file patching system, and the way that you basically kind of predefined the password that you use to actually encrypt the thing was in an extended privilege set that was, the keyword, it was formatted a particular way. It was like, FM encrypted patch _ and then the password or something like that. I'm making up the name, but it was like that. And so you could have untrusted third parties give you trusted code, basically, to patch your database with, which they built. And then I don't know if we actually demoed that live on air. We should probably do that at some point. But that makes more sense as to why that was how they implemented it. Actually, that was probably somebody asked for that, and then if Clay built it, then
that's interesting. There's a lot of things that are coming up in terms of what Claris is doing, and Claris has not been very forthcoming in what their plans are, besides, we want Connect to be part of the FileMaker platform. And I'm like, okay. So I don't know. Claris, we talked to them and they said, oh yeah, we want to talk to you, Richard. And then poof, it's like the Cinderella's, the Cinderella has her limousine, right? And at midnight, Cinderella and her limousine and her fancy dress and her new iPhone and everything else turns to a pumpkin, right? It's that old Disney thing, right? So so that it's I don't have a good read on where they are, but this gives them a lot of flexibility in doing some really interesting security things. And they definitely test on this. I can tell you they definitely test on this, right? So
we do have a question about it really fast.
Sure.
From Larry, yeah. If there is more than one FM authenticate, what's the hierarchy?
The more restrictive goes in the order of more restrictive. So if you have a a 1, 5, and a 10, it's going to use the 1. It's not going to cut you a bunch of slack. It's going to be pessimistic security kind of thing. If that makes sense, right?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, what's strange is that it allows me to select both of them.
Sure, right? Because they don't have there's no logic in the system that would tell you that 2 extended privileges would run into each other and can't be, oh, you can only have one of these. No, they didn't build that. But I can just tell you that it goes for, like, when people authenticate on a list, right? You authenticate top to bottom for whatever reason, and you can end up being in more than one spot on the authentication list, right? Due to Active Directory and other things. It goes from top to bottom in the authentication. So you go ahead and cancel for a second, Jay. If you go over to not here, no, go back to security. We just want the basic. Yeah. So basically, if you can authenticate different ways for whatever reason, it runs down the list, say the priority list, it says priority here. It's going to run down this list like this. And the first one you qualify for, it's going to go ahead and go down that road and apply it and get you in and then stop. It's not going to go, well, there's this other one down here and this other one down here. And which one should I use? Shit. It does them in the order of priority, frankly, right here. And the first one you get to, bammo, you're in, right? Most people think, well, you'd only qualify for one. You could definitely qualify for more than one, especially if you're using Active Directory. Active Directory, we have a live stream about that. We talk about that. We set it up with 360 Works. We spent a whole day on it. It was really, that's a good topic too. If one of you wants to point that out. Yeah, we find that.
This up here, how exactly you can authenticate. We've just discussed the basic authenticate via FileMaker file. Or external server.
In a live stream we did Azure online Active Directory, and which is what we're going to use at RCC. We're rolling this out at RCC. So we'll instead of having individuals logged into files, we are going to go to this Active Directory system. So if Jonathan, you want to change your password, it changes it in the Active Directory system, and the FileMaker doesn't particularly care. It just knows that you're part of a group. Right. So that's part of that live stream. It was covered probably January-ish timeframe, February. It was a 360 Works with Joe Martin. Margaret, you were probably around for that. So anyway.
Yes.
Good,
okay.
Good stuff.
More questions. Since you can't assign an extended privilege set to a user, I suppose you use it to assign privileges across multiple privilege sets?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, if you want. Yeah.
And then you have evaluation of the extended privilege set built into your system, so that if they have the privilege, they get the thing, and if they don't, they don't.
They don't get the thing, right? So yeah.
From Nathan on Twitch, with extended privilege set, is there a list of extra FM extended privileges that are not there by default? For example, FM migration.
If it ain't in there,
the one I was thinking about. Yeah.
If it ain't in there, it as a general rule, there's not like a list of 50 of them that are secret that you have the secret handshake. Every once in a while, Claris will put some secret crap in the product that they don't tell you about, and then a lot of times people will beta test it. They'll like hidden get function. Like there was this hidden get function, which was the get elapsed time from UTZ or GMT or whatever it was, and it was a hidden get function in the product for like a whole release, and like Todd Geis and 5 people knew about it, and they were all sworn to double secret probation kind of secrecy. And then after it worked, then they made it official the next release. So officially, per the documentation, there's really not any other extended privileges. Doesn't mean they're not there. It just means that it's like double secret probation kind of stuff for those of you who have your movie references. So,
and then to find what type of syntax would work, like I didn't know you could just type in FM reauthenticate type of number and it would actually work. Is that in the help section somewhere, do you know?
You have to read up on the extended privileges and read up on them. Basically, authenticate, reauthenticate is interesting because it allows you to define your own with a number behind it, right? It's unusual because then that allows you to tap into that sleep function that, when you sleep your laptop or you take a phone call on your iOS app, iPhone, and then your FileMaker goes to the background, things like that. So that's a kind of an interesting one because you can define additional ones, but you can also put a number in there to monkey around with it, right? The rest of these basically are kind of like it's a keyword. They're either on or they're off. This one has an on, off, and an option, right? But I would be surprised if there weren't other ones that are floating around, just because Claris being Claris, the engineers put things in there, but I don't have a list of that currently. The secret Easter egg kind of extended privileges.
Yeah, because I think that's what this listener's last question was. Are there secret little things on the menu like at In-N-Out where you can get the animal style thing and it kind of just works?
Yes.
I don't know.
I don't have a list of Easter egg extended.
We would like to order the Neapolitan shake.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I mean, there are some ones that are discontinued. That are ones that were previous versions and they're not in here. A lot of times you'll come into like a file, like what you could do is open up. Do you have like an older FileMaker file somewhere? Take a screenshot of this, Jonathan. This will be kind of educational. Take a screenshot of this thing. And then, so we're going to assume that this is the default for a new file. Is this a fairly new file you created?
Yeah, it was created yesterday.
Okay, great. So then what we need to do is we need to find a FileMaker file that's like 10, 15 years old, something that you have admin privileges to, and then pop that one open, and you're going to see a different list. Because what happens is that once you create a new file, it writes the extended privileges in. It never gets rid of them, even if you move up in a new version. So say you move up, like there used to be extended privilege called FM IWP for Instant Web Publishing, which is the predecessor to WebDirect, right? And so if you have an older file, it'll say FM IWP. It won't do anything. It doesn't have any action in the application because Instant Web Publishing isn't a thing anymore. But that extended privilege is still in there. So you can pop open and see kind of what I would call legacy extended privileges that are kind of in there and they're kind of rusting and rotting, but
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. 1 second.
Okay, cool. So now we need some Jeopardy music.
Yeah, this is perfect. Okay, so this is the old Data for Life, right? And this
I haven't heard that name in like
Jay, do you still have this? Jay, did you still have this on your computer? Oh my goodness.
This is a backup from who knows when, 2008, right? And so this is in FileMaker 10. We're looking at manage accounts and privileges. And then we come here to extended privileges, and there's all the stuff.
There we go. So IWP. Okay, there's FM app again. FM mobile. What the hell is FM mobile? I think that was extended privileges for it was a little version of it was before FileMaker Go. It was this little flat thing that they built in FileMaker 6. Man, you'd have to go back and bring that up. But we're talking stuff that's 20 years old.
Like we're talking FM XSLT. That sounds cool.
Yeah, and that's of course deprecated, right? So and those say FileMaker server only, right? So but yeah, some of them you see the legacy. So FMI or IWP is now FM WebDirect. XDBC, that's still over there because that hasn't gone away. FM app is, well, back in the old days, it was only Pro. But then when they added Go, they didn't add a new extended privilege set. They just said, hey, and go. So they added Go to that. FM mobile, which is a test question, is from 20 years ago. They'll throw that in there. They'll say an FM iOS, FM mobile. You better know that those are fake answers on the test, baby. Okay. Then XML, PHP is being deprecated. External script access is fairly new. URL script access is new. We're going to talk about those more tomorrow with Hogle. We're going to tear this apart and spend more time on that specifically. FM REST, that's where the data API, that's where FileMaker, I think, is a source, right? Jacob, do I have that correct?
Yeah, that's FM REST is DAPI. That's your DAPI permission.
Oh, so you're turned on DAPI. So the old one was XML and then PHP, and basically those are going to be deprecated. And then FM REST is the new replacement. So it's data API, right?
Yep. REST
and then FMO data is the OData as a source or as a client? As a source?
It's a source. I actually don't know if it runs through the data API or not. That one is only supported on Cloud 2 and Linux FMS, I believe.
Okay.
So, which is why you haven't seen it, basically. A client that we talked about recently, not naming names, was able to successfully integrate their website with Cloud 2 using the OData access point that worked for them. So
But that's not public access. That was a specific authenticated user access.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That they were using for that data back and forth. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of those things that, Claris, we get into it with sales down there at Claris, and they're like, hey, use Cloud 2. It's the most amazing thing. It does everything, except it doesn't do public. It doesn't allow for public facing access to a FileMaker backend, right? I mean, I don't mean like like WebDirect, but I mean like if you wanted to submit, like, please contact me immediately as soon as possible because I'm interested in your product. Then I'm going to put in my first name, last name, and email and a phone number and submit. Cloud 2 can't support that kind of thing, right? So for example, and it gets into this authentication stuff, but it's there's a lot. We could talk at great length about all this at great length. So
I was laughing. I pulled up the extended privilege set on the hosting database, and the FM IWP is still in there, in addition to the now FM WebDirect.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. And another thing too that really does need to be kept in mind for those taking the test is what accounts are there by default, which ones you can delete, which ones you cannot delete.
Yep. Privilege sets too.
So. And privilege sets too. So that's something to keep in mind. I don't know if you want to get into this too, but there are certain things that you can remove with developer utilities. You can remove an admin account altogether, whereas you can't do that by coming in here and coming into to security, into privileges, and just removing the full access. It won't allow you to do that. But by using developer tools, you can do that. It's just highly warned against if you can get yourself into a lot of trouble if you delete that unintentionally.
Yeah, that would be bad.
All right. Anything else that comes to mind there, Jacob, for the extended privilege set stuff?
Not other than maybe showing that I have FM IWP on there. The only demo I was thinking of is I can show like our metrics. I guess it's kind of the same thing as you did. It's just I'm 100% using this one in production. Or I have a single user. I guess it's not an extended privilege set. It doesn't really use that. Although it kind of demos not having anything else turned on. And we could walk through just the basic design of like a super lockdown user that's allowed to, in this case, do one thing. I don't know if that would be helpful for the audience or not, but that'd be maybe 5 or 10 more minutes, I think.
Yeah, we got a couple more minutes too. But beforehand, do we have any questions, Margaret?
No, mostly it just looks like commentary.
Okay.
Stu did kind of notice something interesting from the help, which I might read out loud. Maybe it's interesting, maybe it's not. The file has been set to save the password in your Credential Manager, Windows, or keychain for Mac OS. And the FM Authenticate extended privilege has been enabled. You will not be prompted for account information unless the password is invalid, or the current account name does not match the account name stored in your Credential Manager or keychain. That's pretty standard behavior, though, isn't it?
That's
okay,
your
so
normal
one
auto
thing,
login.
yeah, if we log in, let's put in here that we want to automatically log in. Okay, and it gives me this warning. Doesn't like that, right? But it allows me to, and I double click. It'll come right up without asking for the account name and password. Some people who do this and then like, oh no, I actually want to log in as so-and-so, you can hold down a specific key on a Mac and a different one on a PC. I believe it's Option on a Mac.
Shift
and then so if you hold down Option and double click it, or Option and open it, then it will give you the ability to do this all over again without having it saved. So anyways, that's one little tidbit there.
That key is the Shift key on Windows. I had to learn that recently.
Yeah, it's the Shift key on Windows. Jay, can you go back to the file real quick? This is important. So there's two pieces here that are interacting together, and one piece is the re-authenticate. So that's where the server is going to let someone back in without prompting them for a username and password. Not this. Go to the file info part that you were just at a second ago, the auto enter part. So what happens is that, let me explain this. So the sequence of events is that you sleep the computer and then you try to come back. And the server says, hey, should I require the credentials to come back? Yes or no, right? And if the answer is no, I don't require the credentials because you're inside that time window of 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 1 minute or whatever it is, then it's not going to press the file for anything. If it presses the file for credentials, it's going to check right here first. It checks for this, okay? Does it set to auto enter? Yes or no? Oh, okay, it's auto enter set turned on. The file, when you have a file on FileMaker Server, by default, FileMaker Server and Cloud, you cannot at any time use a hosted file with this turned on. It's not allowed. They don't want you auto entering anything on a file because that means anyone on the internet can do it. They don't like that. So this is turned off. You can overwrite it on FileMaker Server because it's your own server and it's your own ass, not Apple, right? Because remember, Cloud 2 is Claris. Claris is Apple. That means if they don't want hackers doing hackery things with Apple servers. So number one is it reauthentication required? Yes, reauthentication required. Is this on? No, it's not on. 2, is the credential, is this turned on? Allow the credentials, right? Allow storage of the credentials. And if they are stored, go and get them off the computer. Now, the top one is for basically Mac and Windows. And this bottom one, if turned on, allows you to do it with iOS. So I don't know that it's really tested, but this is like really important. If you have a medical application with HIPAA, with the United States, that's for the medical doctor stuff. It's like super duper duper top secret. You cannot save the credentials. Every time you log in, you need to authenticate. So whether a thumbprint or some sort of something, right? And so what happens is that you say authenticate, set to 0. So it's going to come over here and say, okay, the client must reauthenticate. This is blank or not allowed. So good, you can't go there. Now I'm going to come down here. Now, if you want the person to reauthenticate, allow credentials to be stored, you can turn this off. Now, how does that, if you turn it off on iOS, right? They say you turn it off totally. On Mac or Windows, it's going to ask you for the username and password again. On iOS,
it won't let you to store it, I don't think.
Yeah. On iOS, it's going to.
Let's turn this auto login off too.
Yeah, you'd have to play with this on iOS, but I think that iOS, if you can authenticate with your thumbprint or your face print, I think the thumbprint or face print allows you to get to the stored credentials. Without the thumbprint or the face print, or with that turned off, you're still going to have to enter the username and password. I believe that's correct. Kyle, who out there is an iOS person who's turned this on and off? Because most people like turn it on and leave it on. But if you have a medical app or some sort of super secret stuff, you want the person to re-authenticate username and password, like actually type it in.
Yeah.
And not have the ability to click the little checkbox down here.
Yes. Well, but then iOS, it's not just a checkbox. It's that gets you back in. It could be your thumbprint on the little bottom, or it could be your face scan if you're on a newer iPhone. And so you don't want those to count either. You want the person to actually have the credentials. So you want to play with that a little bit. I don't believe that kind of scenario is tested on the certification test. I don't remember, Larry, if you saw that. I don't think so. But
So I guess the total solution here, if you're trying to make it, no, they have to log in every time, is there's no auto logins. You don't have the credential saving checkbox turned on, and then you also set an extended privilege set of something like FM reauthenticate 0, so that whenever they come back to the computer, no matter what, under every circumstance, they have to log back in and they can't save their credentials.
Yeah. Because there's questions about whether you can fake someone's fingerprint or face or things like that. So it's kind of like, So anyway, other questions from anyone or comments from anyone? Kyle?
John says that for the whole iOS related thing, he says if you turn it off, you can't use Touch ID or Face ID.
Which is perfect. That way you can force people to put the username and password. It's what you want, right?
Yeah.
What you want.
And then Stu, as a follow-up, decision to allow storing credentials is based on the file options and not left to the user, correct?
Correct.
Yes, that's a file options for the file, not a user option. Correct. Stu, that's very, and I know Stu, where Stu plays at, and that would be an important thing.
Yeah,
with
because
the DoD.
I guess if you brought it down to the extended privilege set level or something like that, you could have different levels of authentication necessary for different levels of access into the file.
Well, absolutely. You could
Probably
have,
you just have different files though, it sounds like.
yeah. Yeah, you can have different people with different re-authenticates. I mean, if someone doesn't really have access to a super secret area and it's really locked down with a security, then you could have them re-authenticate with 5 or 10 or something. But but I would have it in a separate file then, right? To keep the really super secret data in a specific file. Just makes life much easier for you. Other comments or questions? Stu, John?
Nathan has slid in with another, probably tomorrow project.
Really
maybe
good,
for
Nathan.
tomorrow. But how would you modify a file with full access removed? Would you only be able to update the code via data migration with the FM migration exit privilege?
Whoa. If you remove okay, so Nathan, are you trying to steal someone's product or you just lock yourself out of a thing? Because removing the full admin, remember that's basically kind of a runtime where you go to the developer tools. You're not really building a runtime, but you remove the admin access. The developer removes admin access as a permanent barrier to allowing someone to go in and modify the file, right? Say I really wanted to give her a starting point, but everyone had to buy it. Say we did that.
It's like Web Portal Wizard.
Yes,
the admin access is removed.
Yeah, you remove the admin access. So the question is, once you've done that, that's permanent. And so Nathan's asking, can you get past that doing a data migration? Yeah, I guess, God, I don't know. If you
It's one thing to get the data out. It's another thing to modify the file. I mean, you're out of luck if you try to modify the layout.
Yeah, I'm asserting a no as the answer to that question. You have to pass a username and password on the command line for the user that's being logged into for the data migration tool, for example. If that user's not full access, the data is not moving.
Oh,
I don't know what the error message is. I've never tried to trigger that case, but that is one of the requirements. It's one of the only truly required command line options. Yeah.
The data migration tool requires full access, is what you're saying. And so for those of you wondering about this, when you run this tool, and we did a video on this, we talked about this, we have another live stream on this. It doesn't just suppress it and it's still in there. It's gone. It's literally deleted from the list of accounts. So when you open, Jay's doing security. If you go up under file, Jay, real quick, go to security, go to privileges. When you run, you logged yourself out, but when you run this developer tool under tools up there, right? So you're in security in here. So let me just draw real quick. If you come up here and say, hey, give me a copy of this file and remove admin access, that process actually comes in here and it literally deletes this line. The line is gone. It's gone, right? Does that make sense? And so it's not like suppress, you can get around it. It's gone, right? So I can't make GONE big enough for you. So that's very, very important. Good one, Jacob. Both you guys, boy, together, you guys are a kick-ass. It's like Batman and Robin or something. This is awesome.
Yeah, well, who's Batman and who's Robin? That's the question.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that I might be Robin and Jacob's Batman. So yeah. I need some green tights. Could be a little questionable. All right, cool. Oh, no. All right, so
Nathan is elaborating before we bail. I was thinking along the lines of having a master code filed and satellite offices have files with full admin removed.
Well, you can't do data migration tool against those files, so you'll need a process where you're going to export. You can export. Yeah. You export, but then you're back to this process of a painful. Did I say the word painful? Superly painful process of doing exports and imports.
Yeah, you'd have to have an awfully good reason to do that.
Well, if Nathan has, a million, $15 million is motivation with a universal adapter. If he's trying to protect $15 million in the database, then yeah, that's a good reason.
Yep.
$15 million. If Jericho won, who's it? Jericho from Reno? He was the one, and we're going to do some adjudication today. But yeah, $15 million with a universal adapter. I love that line in a movie. It's a great line.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. You'll have a fantastic day. We will catch you tomorrow.
Just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Try to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.